Greetings. This is the midweek devotional for January 26th, 2022 from University United Methodist Church in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I'm John Fletcher. I'm a member here at University. Now, whether you're a regular watcher of our midweek devotionals, an occasional watcher, or even if you're just stumbling across this video randomly, welcome. Thank you for spending time during your week with us. Now, I've had to tune into live streams of our regular church services for the past few weeks myself. I've been steering clear of most in-person gatherings during this upsurge in COVID, but it's been a pleasure to be able to experience sermons from Reverend Katie and Karen online. The worship team is doing a series of sermons about radical acceptance, and they're using the story of Job as the jumping off point. Now, a few Sundays ago, Reverend Katie started off by talking about an internet meme that is a meme, an image, a text combination that circulates online, becoming a sort of cultural common reference point. The meme she chose is known as "This is Fine," and here is a picture of it. It's two panels of a comic strip that comes from 2003, and in the comic strip, a cartoon dog is sitting at a table, sipping coffee, and everything around the dog is on fire. "This is fine," he declares. The meme is from a comic called Gun Show by artist K.C. Green. If you look up the original web comic strip, the fire around the dog gets worse until it's kind of gruesome. The dog melts, all the while telling himself, "That's okay. Things are going to be okay." Since 2013, the strip has, as I say, gone viral, right? It's used in a number of different contexts, usually in two distinct ways. First, the comic strip gets used to provoke people into action. Like, if your house is on fire, the last thing you want to do is just sit around and say, everything's fine. And the point taken, right? There are plenty of times in my life where I imagine myself as more helpless than I actually am. Sometimes I'm invited to accept things that ought not be accepted: hatred, envy, apathy at other people's suffering. So often I'm tempted to accept injustices as just the way things are, when in fact I can participate in changing those things. In those cases, radical acceptance might mean facing hard realities. Things aren't fine, and responding to them. So that's one way that this comic strip gets used. The other way, the one I want to focus on today, though, is it gets used to capture a sense of authentic helplessness. Places where everything's on fire and there's nothing I can do. There are times in my life where I really do have to face bad situations that I didn't choose and that I can't evade. And I really think that religion, faith, is one of the things that it's for, is to give us ways to recognize and deal with those kind of realities. Realities like the reality that some people won't love us or even like us. The reality that some people will hurt us and will never admit it or apologize. The reality that we will lose people dear to us. The reality that we will make some choices that hurt other people. Or really, the big one, the reality that we will die. The reality that we will suffer. This last one, that's a big one, right? A few weeks ago, I spent the night at the Baton Rouge General Hospital emergency room. I was accompanying a friend who was suffering from a kidney stone. Now, they say that kidney stones are among the most painful experiences people can have. I've never had one myself. I have no desire to try it out and see for myself. I'll say, friends, I have never firsthand seen someone in as much abject agony as my friend was. We got to the ER around 10 p.m. at night. And as you can imagine, right now is a pretty bad time to have to access medical help. The ER was slammed and understaffed. Y'all, we waited 5 hours in the ER waiting room before anyone could even see my friend. All that time, all I could do was watch him rock back and forth, unable to escape the pain. I prayed as hard as I have prayed in some time. "God, please Let them take him back soon. Please relieve his suffering. And in my rational mind, I knew that eventually they'd call him back and they'd get him some morphine, but those midnight hours of waiting felt like it felt like we were in the DMV line of hell, just waiting for our number to come up, not knowing how long it would be until that happened, just in unbearable misery. Now, I think there are features of our medical system that can be changed to make this experience less awful for everyone. There's work to be done on that score, but for that night, in that situation, all my friend could do was wait and wait and wait. And all I could do, sitting there next to him, was mutter some meaningless words, be with my friend, and pray and wonder why the creator of the universe, the all powerful God I worship, couldn't extend just a fraction of divine power to make my friend's pain stop. It's tempting in those moments to succumb to an image of God as distant or uncaring, too grand or busy to bother with something as tiny as a kidney stone or a tumor, a dying loved one, a lost job, a broken relationship, or even a season of depression or anxiety. So many of these experiences, what makes them bad isn't just the pain, that's awful, but also the duration, the waiting and wading through them. Standing in hell's DMV line, it can be hard sometimes to believe in a loving God at all. The book of Job is a pretty challenging text for the pastors to use for a series on radical acceptance. If you read it, Job also faces his world burned up, right? His children dead, his possessions gone, his skin on fire with boils, and he too prays. He too waits. And there are times in scripture, I have to say, where the why we suffer question gets a pretty firm answer. Well, you abandoned God, you made bad choices, you're facing the consequences. In Job, though, the question of suffering, it seems unanswered. At the end of the book, God's elaborate response to Job is essentially, who are you to ask? The answer is too big for you. Similarly, in the Gospels, Jesus asks from the cross, my God, why have you forsaken me? And the heavens are silent and dark. So we don't get from these moments an answer. We don't get some logical reason for why suffering is necessary or justified, and that's just hard. I gained some small comfort, however, seeing that in such moments of senseless suffering, we are not expected to say, this is fine. We're not punished for telling God how not okay life is, how much this hurts, how much we want to be delivered from this awful fire. I wonder actually if the Christian counterpart to the this is fine meme is something more like the hymn that we all sing, It is well with my soul. If you grew up in the church, you've likely heard it. If not, I recommend you Google it just to listen to it on YouTube. When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. It's beautiful music, but the message can all too easily come across as a denial of reality that it is well on first hearing. It can sound an awful lot like that this is fine meme, but that's not the message. You may be aware of the backstory of that hymn, and its author, Horatio Spafford was his name. And back in 1873, Spafford and his family had planned to travel from America to England to help with evangelistic efforts there. And Spafford sent his wife and his 4 daughters ahead of him, but the steamboat carrying them across the ocean, however, wrecked, and all 4 of Spafford's children died. Spafford's wife, who survived, sent her husband a telegram from England. It said just 2 words, saved alone. Spafford quickly booked his own voyage over to meet her, and I can only imagine the kind of waiting that was aboard a steamship crossing the Atlantic, his life ripped out from under him. I don't know what kind of pain he was in, what kind of prayers he must have prayed. But, as the story goes, as his ship passed close to the site of the wreck, He was moved to pen the words to It Is Well. And if you look at the hymn in the hymnal, you'll see that the tune is Ville du Havre, the name of the ship that sank. I don't think Spafford meant this is fine when he penned It Is Well. He doesn't give us platitudes or assurances that present suffering will cease. He doesn't explain some grand plan God must have to make sense of awful events. It doesn't promise to reverse the bad fortune, to cease the pain, or return lost loved ones. The hymn doesn't explain or dismiss suffering at all. I mean, the sea billows that killed his children are right there in the first verse. The closest Spafford comes to is a request for hope in the last verse. And Lord, haste the day when our faith shall be sight. The clouds be rolled back like a scroll. The trump shall resound. The Lord shall descend. But the closing line remains focused on the present. Even so, it is well with my soul. It is well. This phrase, I think, it's not meant as a description. It is an aspiration. Let it be well. Like Jesus, after asking God in Gethsemane to let this cup, the crucifixion, pass from him, yet, Jesus says, not my will, but yours be done. It's an act of surrender, of letting go. When I look back on especially painful moments in my life, times when I was, in a sort of hell space, I find that I craft my prayers as very specific wishes. God, please let me get this job. Lord, please let this person call me. Make this situation better in just this way, I ask. In those moments, it is clear to me exactly just what God ought to do, what I need God to do. Often I invest a lot of energy into crafting those very specific requests. That investment makes it all the more frustrating for me when the job doesn't come through, the call doesn't come, the situation persists rather than magically disappearing. I get more upset. I just exhaust myself with these specific prayers until at last I'm reduced to the basics. God, help me. God, I give you this person. Lord, I don't know what to do. I found that those simpler, desperate prayers, they're actually more effective. I, they help me to let go of needing the situation to turn out just this one way. I relinquish the situation to God, trusting God to do what's ultimately best, even if that's not what I desperately want in the moment. It is a kind of radical acceptance. And I'll hasten to say it's one that I often have to go through that whole process of starting with the very specific prayers and then letting go. I can't just skip there, right? When I was in high school in the early 90s, the company Reebok, they had an ad campaign that went, life is short, play hard. You can see that in this picture here. And plenty of evangelicals preachers, they loved that. They tweaked it. Life is short, pray hard, you can see. Read the book instead of Reebok. My youth group leader, Paul Ann, and she had such a profound effect on my faith. Paul Ann tweaked this even further. Life is hard, she says. Pray short. Life is hard. Pray short. So many of the enduring prayers in the Christian tradition are short. Jesus Christ, Lord of all, have mercy on me, a sinner. Lord, I believe. Help mine unbelief. God, help me. Lord, save us. I think we can see it as well in a similar way, as a kind of short prayer for a hard life. We can reject the this is fine as a willful refusal to acknowledge houses on fire. We can reject this is fine also as a Hallmark rom-com happy face plastered on tragedy or pain. Life is hard. Sometimes everything is on fire. Sometimes we really don't know what to do about it. And in those cases, a radical holy acceptance might mean something like praying short, asking God to take control, breathing deep, to let God be God. Maybe you find yourself in a hard spot this week, a place where you are waiting in agony for who knows how much longer. Maybe you're adjacent to someone who is suffering, unsure what to do for them. I pray for you. God, help them. God, help us. Lord, let us relinquish our need for life to be just as we would have it. Grant us the peace that passes understanding, even as we wait in pain. Let it be well with our souls. Amen. Thank you, friends.